Are you suffering from concussion, memory loss, anxiety, frustration, or brain fog? For mainstream to unconventional solutions, join Simone and Marcy at Concussed Chicks Chat. Welcome to Concussed Chicks Chat. I'm Simone.
Marcy.
Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about resources, different websites or paradigms that you can use or even access if you suspect a concussion. So it's for parents, athletes,
Coaches.
Yes, definitely coaches. And
Friends. If you suspect a friend has a concussion from teammate.
right,
Anything
absolutely.
like that. Yeah.
And probably if you have a concussion, you're not going to go on the internet because it's really hard on your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So have someone do it for you. Because these two websites are leading edge for athletes, but even non-athletes, because whether you're an athlete or not, your body's going to respond the
That's
same
right.
way. So the first one we're going to talk about is the World Rugby Association. They actually are the forefront of research. They've been doing it forever. The health of the rugby athlete is so important to them. They've always protected them, and which is really great, but they put it on their website. So it's the World Rugby Concussion Guidance. And so I'm going to read this because we want to discuss what is a concussion, because we've been talking about concussion and the symptoms and whatnot, but to be defined, how they define it is pretty simple. So concussion is a traumatic brain injury.
Oh, that word again.
Right, resulting in a disturbance of brain function. And there are many symptoms and signs of concussion. So common ones are being a headache, dizziness, memory disturbance, or balance problems. And yes, so I have the balance problems, which only actually comes out when I'm trying to do lunges or one-legged exercises. I wobble.
Yeah.
And I used to be really stable before, and even all this time later, I'm still like, why is my balance still off? And that is concerning, because if your balance is off, you're more prone to fall. And after concussion, you're more prone for injury, lower leg injury, and falling. And that part is really, you don't want to fall. Falling's the worst thing you can do.
For me, it's not just doing lunges or one-legged exercises. It's putting my pants on. It's putting on shoes one at a time. What, you know how you stand and put a shoe on, or you stand and put a boot on? I have to lean up against something.
Because your brain is going, where are we? Where, it has to. And so the cueing, a lot of people use their eyes to cue where they are. So if their eyes are looking down, again, their brain's going, okay, what's going on? And it has to reorientate itself. So the balance is really important. So it goes on to say loss of consciousness, being knocked out, occurs in less than 10%.
Well, yeah, because most people don't get knocked out.
Right.
And I think that's a misperception out there, that you only have a concussion when you get knocked out, black out.
Right. And so when I ask people too, do you think you've had a concussion? Oh, no, I wasn't knocked out. That's you're right, the first response. And I'm like, well, did you get a headache? And they're like, oh, yeah, I did. Or, they felt weird.
And I think that's one of the main reasons why Simone and I got together and decided to do this Concussed Chicks Chat, is because there's so much misconception out there about concussion. And people think, oh, okay, so I had a concussion and I'll be better in 2 days.
Right.
My life will resume. So this is one of the reasons why we're doing this channel, is we want people to understand and see us. We look normal.
Right. Well, sort of.
Kind of. And we want to just show
Share.
everybody.
Yeah,
share
that
our experiences.
The struggle often is on the inside, and going to the extreme is those athletes, because it's not only athletes committing suicide after head injury or continual head injury, it's regular people too, because the struggle is internal, and you look healthy, and your family's going, okay, well, you're not yourself. And they're responding almost sometimes aggressively because they don't understand why you're behaving that way, and you can't help yourself. It's like, you can't not do that. It's a catch-22 about really educating your support system that you're struggling on the inside. And as a concussed person, you might not even know that you're struggling. So I didn't until my brain started to heal. And then I realized that my concussion from an accident in 1999 in which I lost my hearing.
So that was almost 20 years ago.
Yes, I'm not that old though.
No. You were just a baby.
So yeah, that I lost my hearing and I was losing my hearing from that car accident. And I didn't realize it because I thought, oh, it was bad cell service. Oh, it was this. Oh, it was that. And then one day I woke up and I had to go to emergency because I was totally deaf. And it was from that trauma. But as I was in university and I was studying, my brain became more fatigued. And then I completely lost the feeling on the left side of my body.
Oh my goodness.
And so I was getting all these symptoms and they're like, well, maybe that's a migraine. But it was going on both sides and a lot of weird things that were happening. But from then to the next concussion and the next, that whole time in my life, I had a concussion. And it affected my choices in relationship.
Yes.
My always looking to do something extreme, exciting, and to stimulate my brain or to even calm my brain out, like the binging on watching, sci-fi movies all night so I can sleep, stuff like that. Or back then what I would do is download music after music after music all night long. And I was supposed to be studying and stuff like that. So looking back now, because my brain is on the road to recovery, all of those behaviors were because I had a concussion. And the hearing loss, which is like, whoa, what's that? Nobody really knows what that is. And all these things. And it accumulates. So just being aware of how it presents, and you really, as a concussed person, people ask you, are you okay? And then the answer usually is, yeah, I'm fine. And you really don't know that you're not fine, but internally you're having negative self-talk, you're maybe medicating more, and that could be with alcohol, could be with drugs, could be with sci-fi stuff.
Sex, shopping.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything like that is getting bigger. And so, but you don't realize it because it's happening gradually. So those things are really important to know.
So what else does the rugby...
So typically, this came up in the symposium or conference, is that people now are going, well, I want an MRI. I want some sort of scan to show that I have a concussion. And currently, right now, there is no imaging that has caught up to the need. So there's no imaging out there to show that you actually have a concussion.
So how do they determine that? How can a physician say, Simone, you have a concussion?
Well, initially, it's usually within right after a concussion, athletic therapists or coaches or whatever would do the SCAT-5, and some doctors can do that too. But there is other tests that they can do in their office, memory tests, balance tests. Actually, I have to share this because I went to the Brain Injury Institute just last week. And the physiatrist who's specializing in brain injury was testing me because I came in. My GP actually wanted me to be tested for some stuff because I'm struggling still. And his office was so small. And he's like, well, do this walk, with your feet in front. Yeah. And it's like 2 steps. Oh, yeah, you're fine. And I'm like, this is a specialist who's specializing in brain injury, and the testing is not adequate. So I actually went to a chiropractor who does the Carrick Institute modality, which is the testing is quite extensive. And she's like, holy crap. She did say that. She's like, you've got a lot of stuff going on. You got visual stuff, vestibular stuff, your brain's not communicating. And she said, when I lie down, I'm worse. So that's why I don't want to go to sleep. And I'm self-medicating, is because when I lie down, there's more chaos in my brain, which is the opposite of everyone else. So she said, we have to do a whole bunch of different exercises for your brain for that. So her education from the Carrick Institute is way more thorough than the physiatrist at the Brain Injury Institute. He does not know what he does not know.
So what kind of exercises is she giving you that maybe we could give to some of our subscribers?
Well, those actually...
Or are those just individual for each person depending on what your symptoms are?
Yes.
Okay.
So seeking out a chiropractor, they might never do an adjustment on you, but who has done the Carrick Institute work, or it could be a physical therapist, it could be a physio, anyone who's taken their program, because the testing is extensive and they look for what specific part of the brain is not firing from the test.
And what is the Carrick Institute?
That actually is an institute that has been up and running, and it's teaching healthcare professionals how to neurologically change the brain with movement and exercise.
So how do I know if my therapist has this? Do I just go through like Google and phone the office? Do you have this training?
Yeah, you would
Okay.
want to ask them, because they might not volunteer that, or you go to thecarrickinstitute.com and call them or email them and see if there's a practitioner.
So
in
this
your
is
area.
like region wide, like
it's across the world. It's a
countrywide.
world.
Okay,
It's across the
countrywide.
world.
Yeah,
So
worldwide.
it's everywhere. And but the exercises are a lot of eye exercises. So
Right.
for me, it's like focusing on one dot for 3 seconds, move to the next one.
Oh,
move to
that
the
would
next
make me
one.
sick.
Right. So that's one. And until I improve on that, then I don't get the next one because my brain's still struggling.
Right.
So that is leading edge stuff. And then there's vestibular retraining, which a lot of physical therapists or physios are doing. And again, same sort
So
of
can you
exercise.
explain what that is? Because for me, I don't know what that word means, and I'm sure maybe some of our subscribers don't either.
Right. So it's basically the connection of your eyes and your ears to your brain.
Okay.
And the communication that flows through that. So that's the simplified version. And if there's a disconnect or an imbalance there, let's say it's your inner ear or the bones in your ear, and they need to be put back in place through movement,
Right.
because they're jarred out through movement, and to be put back in place, then dizziness or vertigo might be completely gone with just that one movement.
Okay.
And also the eyes change in the information that's telling your brain.
Okay.
So some people, their eyes will be moving like this constantly, and because the compensation, and also they're in fight or flight, so they're in that fear mode, so they're always looking in their environment to see if it's safe unconsciously. And so really bringing that whole system, the eyes and the ears and the brain, back into balance, and it can be done through re-education. It doesn't have to be, a big surgery or anything like that, because there really is no surgery unless you have a brain bleed for concussion.
So going back to MRI, CT, so there's really no way to do an image to determine unless they see if you have a brain bleed.
Correct. So they really don't want to do CTs on children under, I think, the age of 7, because of the radiation is extreme.
Right.
And they're developing and that sort of thing, and also pregnant women or anyone who's sensitive to radiation, because there's a lot of radiation. So
Yes.
you have to weigh out the benefits. So if they think you have some sort of hemorrhaging, brain bleeding, they want to do that kind of scan to see what's going
So
on.
how would they determine, like, let's say you had a accident of whatever, and then you went to the emergency room, how would they say? They'd look at you and they would know you have a brain bleed or suspect you have a brain bleed? How would they suspect that?
Well, again, the eyes tell everything. So dilation of the pupils or one pupil. Again, symptoms increasing, like excruciating pain, headaches, slurred speech.
Okay.
So they're looking at kind of really major things.
Okay.
That and also too, if your head's out to here, that's implying that there's something else.
And
going
those are the instances when they'll put you in the machine and image you.
Right.
And until then, they don't really want to do that.
Yeah, they kind of want to hold off with that. So the MRI, people are like, I want an MRI. So again, science is behind.
Right.
It's behind everything because you want the science behind your study. But it is behind here because the imaging has not caught up to the need. So in a few years, because people are going, I want to see this. So they're going to figure out a way how to go to that level of the brain and see the inflammation. They really want to see the inflammation, or if there's micro tears in fibers.
But like in movies that I've seen, and they've said, "Oh, look, he's got a concussion," and blah blah blah. So I don't understand. I guess that's the movies.
Okay, so that's a different type of imaging. So we're going to talk about that. So the MRI is good for showing scar tissue.
Okay.
But currently, scar tissue is mainly a factor for MS.
Okay.
So, and also it can be indicative of, trauma, but they can't see, okay, what type of trauma, when was this trauma
Right.
happen? Was it 15 years ago? Was it
Right.
yesterday? So they can't see that. So in the movies, I think what you're referring to is the QEEG, which is really putting electrodes on your head, and it measures the neurological activity. And Dr. Corey Deacon, who we are interviewing on our show, will be discussing that in detail because that's his lane, the neurobiology, the neurobiofeedback, and the QEEG. And it was discussed in the symposium about the QEEG, and they're like, well, we're not really sure about that yet, but it shows how the brain communicates or where it's not communicating. And that is significant in head injury. But in the QEEG, it can also tell you if you have ADHD, if you have any sort of trauma, physical, mental, emotional, like it's very specific. And they've been doing that for quite a long time. And that's becoming more mainstream. And to me, that was the most significant treatment that I did to help get my brain back. I did 20 sessions. I still need another 20. Because it only took me halfway because of my ADHD. I need more than the average bear.
Right. And so what is the cost to something like that?
The cost, I don't know the cost off by heart.
Well, maybe we shouldn't put the cost because it could change, right?
Well,
with
really,
inflation.
if we're looking at cost, how much is your health worth to you?
True.
My brain is worth a lot to me. I would pay any price. So that's my answer to, but there is kind of like a standard cost amongst all practitioners in the US and Canada. It's pretty much the same. So, you're not going to go, oh, I'm going to get it cheaper somewhere else. They pretty much charge the same amount, but it's really how much is your brain worth to you.
So you mentioned that we're going to be interviewing Dr. Deacon.
Yes.
I have a few questions for him about gut health and how brain injuries affects the gut. Because for me, I used to be, if my trainer said, Marcy, you eat this, I would eat that.
Right.
And now I'm like, hell no, I'm not eating that.
It's too healthy.
So I want to know the correlation about that and supplements.
He'll have all those answers.
Supplements I should take and not take, and like, should I just go into Whole Foods and just like...
No.
Okay.
No. Okay, so this is the thing. The people that work at vitamin stores and all that, they mean well. And maybe some of them do have a nutrition or a dietitian license. And if they do, I would ask them. But everyone, it's interesting. It's like going to your neighbor and going, I have back pain. What did you do for your back pain? And it's like, okay, well, I stood on my head and I put mustard on my back. And that was the best thing that ever worked. And it's interesting that people will listen to them before their healthcare practitioner. And when it comes to the brain, there are brain supplementations that are off the charts that you can use. And so for me, because of my ADHD, I should be taking like Adderall, and there's a new one that's out that's apparently better. But my GP, who's a sports med guy, he's like, absolutely not. Until we get your concussion under control, you can't take that because then that will put your brain, we don't know what that's going to do to your brain. And so even natural supplementation can affect your brain. So you have to be very careful with concussion, that seeking the advice of somebody who is a neurobiologist or who specializes in the nutrition of brain health and going, and full disclosure, I need help with this. Yes, I've had 5 concussions, 2 concussions. Right. This is my symptoms. If you do not do that, then it's potentially harmful. So the people at the health food stores really do mean well, but again, they're not experts, and they're just like, well, my friend did this, and
they don't
gosh,
know your history.
I've taken this, and fish oil works for everything, and
yeah,
and so again, stay away from that.
So there's a resource that I want to share, and it's called parachutecanada.org, and it's got information for parents, caregivers, coaches, trainers, And it also says in here about teammates, friends, your spouse. If you suspect because of somebody having a fall or a hit to the head or something, go and check it out. You can peruse it for your own leisure. There's so much information out there, and this is a great website. And I love that it's from right here in Canada.
Yeah, and it's evolving. So they were saying that they're adding more information as they're learning it, and as the research is continuing to kind of like go through every aspect of concussion for each individual that's affected, because again, it takes a team. But what are some of those symptoms that they're saying that concussion is? Maybe we'll just kind of go through those.
Okay, so some of the symptoms are headache, dizziness, feeling dazed, feels dinged or stung, like having your bell rung. For me, that would be like a boxer, I would think. Right. Seeing stars, flashing lights, ringing in the ears, loss of vision, seeing double or blurry, stomach ache, stomach pain, and nausea.
Interesting.
And other problems could be poor coordination or balance, blank stared or glassy eyes, vomiting, slurred speech, slow to answer questions or follow directions, easily distracted, poor concentration, strange or inappropriate emotions such as laughing, crying, getting mad easily, and not participating well.
Right. So those are, again, additional symptoms that, that are, it could be anything, but those are really good. So the interesting thing, so ringing in the ears, that is quite common with concussion. So tinnitus. And I actually had musical tinnitus. I would hear, this is crazy, I thought it was my cell phone for like a year. I didn't know I had tinnitus because this isn't normal. I would hear Amazing Grace.
That's scary.
The whole song.
Oh my.
But when I was sleeping at 4 a.m, anywhere from 2 to 4 a.m, I would wake up and I thought it was my alarm. And I actually had that song on my phone. So I was like, make sure my phone was off and, running around the house going, okay, seriously, where is this coming from? Because I could still hear it. And then I finally thought, okay, I'm deleting all the music off my phone. And it still happened. And so I was sharing that with one of my medical doctor friends. And he goes, oh, you have musical tinnitus.
I've never heard of that.
I know. And that is, again, something that people need to hear because it's not just that high pitch or low pitch or just that ringing
the
constantly.
Frequency.
When my head was in a certain position, my brain would play music. And again, it is a thing. It's a real thing out there. And but that was from the head injury. That when I would lie on my left side, that's when I could hear it. And now it's just classical music.
So you still have it after all this time.
But it's less. So it's a lot less as my brain's healing. But if I'm under stress or if I flying's one of the worst things, or sit and drive for a long period of time, it seems to create inflammation in my brain. And so I will get the high pitch as well as the musical. So those are some interesting things that, you might not relate to concussion, but they are connected. So parachutecanada.org offers a lot of information, maybe not about the musical tinnitus, but a lot of resources there for you to look at. And if you are the concussed person, what I recommend is printing it out, because looking at the screen is very distracting and difficult, and you might not want to do it. So again, if you're in a relationship with a concussed person, print out everything for them, because there's a couple things that I learned that were from the concussion and ADHD together combined, is that I cannot fill out a single form. No matter how easy it is, filling out a form is extremely difficult. And I applied for a World Global Entry card, and there was 5 questions on it. It took me 3 years.
3 years.
3 years. And then I felt really good because I filled it out. But that is also another symptom. So if your spouse, your child, or whatever is not doing their taxes, they can't fill out the forms. They a university application, for example. So one of the best things to do is, one, don't get frustrated and don't get mad and don't make them do it because they can't. It's not they don't want to, they physically, their brains cannot do it. So which means you might offer to help them and fill it out for them, because they'll gladly sign it, but they can't actually physically do the filling out part, which is an interesting tip. So again, thank you for watching today, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Concussed Chicks Chat.
See ya! Let the healing begin. Thank you for joining us today. Find us on social media. Post your questions and comments. Until next time, Concussed Chicks Chat.